A reminder to stop by Jack's Car Wash and treat your vehicle to the care it deserves. With over 50 locations across Michigan, you're never far from a clean car. Right now, you can score a free wash. Just visit wlink.live/sportscaster. That's WLINK.live/sportscaster to redeem and experience the Jack's difference for yourself. Well, we have reached the end of the road, as they say. Week 9, high school football. Last week of the regular season, which is wild to even think about. But we've gotten here. Obviously, the boys have gone out every week, played hard on a week-to-week basis. And we here at SportsCaster.com have partnered with WJR to bring you the high school football game of the week every Friday night. And this week, for the final game of the regular season, it will be Pinckney against Ann Arbor Pioneer. Our host of Drive to the Game is Giovanni Moceri. Giovanni here to break down this week's matchup.
My name is Giovanni Moceri, and at least for one more week, I could say that I am your host of Drive to the Game. As we have reached the sunset of our Michigan high school football regular season coverage here on Drive to the Game, as this is the final week of the regular season before we get ready to the playoffs. It brings us to Ann Arbor as Ann Arbor Pioneer hosts Pinckney in the final week of the regular season. Two programs under the tutelage of first-year head coaches with very familiar ties to their respective programs, and two teams looking to find greater success in the next season and looking for this one to be the foundation setter for that future success. We'll get into all of that, all the storylines, all the players to watch out for, and what we can expect to see here on Drive to the Game. Our pregame show is at 6:50 Friday night, exclusively on WJR and our YouTube channel, before we kick things off at 7 p.m. for kickoff to Chris Renwick and our student broadcasters on WJR, while staying on SportsCaster as well as our YouTube channel. We'll get into all of that here in the preview. We'll begin with the Pinckney Pirates. So Pinckney has had a pretty rocky season, to say the least. They come into this game after getting their first win of the season under their new head coach, Buck West. They come into this one 1-7 and 0-6 in their SEC White Conference. Their Southeastern Conference, Southeastern Michigan, that is. Just want to clarify for those who see SEC and their eyes widen. Not college, we're here in high school in Michigan. And their first win comes in a bit of an unusual fashion. Usually you don't see 62 points scored in the first win of a regular season, a first win under a new head coach, but that's exactly what happened last week as the Pirates took on Carleton and took home their first victory, 62-23, the most points scored at Pinckney High School in the past 33 years. It takes us back to 1992 to put it in a calendar's perspective. A great win, a great way to kick off the program here. We'll get into the story in the background of their new head coach, Buck West, only 28 years old. He is a former University of Michigan Wolverine, a walk-on into Jim Harbaugh's program, playing for the Wolverines from 2015 to 2019, helping build that program towards their eventual national championship in 2023, but we're all quite familiar with that itself. He was Pinckney's record-setting quarterback back in his day of playing at the starting position of quarterback from 2011 to 2013, where he set the career record for passing yards with 3,459, as well as passing touchdowns, 31 in his career as a Pirate. He also holds the record for the single season of those such stats with 1,999 passing yards, and in 2013 as well as tying for the most passing touchdowns in that season with 19. So if their future quarterback can just get 2,000 yards and 20 passing touchdowns even, a very nice and pretty number for the record board, then that would be sweet. And that quarterback for the future would be junior quarterback Jax Raymond, who, at least according to my research, unfortunately suffered an injury in week 3 in the preseason. He was predicted to be the one to surpass his new head coach's records in a junior season, much of which being taken away from him will make that a little bit more difficult, but still a great quarterback so far. Already 2,521 yards as he's had a few starts in his freshman season as well as all of it in his sophomore season. Over 2,500 passing yards and 24 touchdowns in those 2 seasons. He is still on pace and still has a chance at those career records, although it will be more difficult as well. But they still have a ton of talent on their team. And in last week's game, in their victory over Carleton, again, 62 points scored, they had plenty of players to be spotlighted. One of which is a stat line that may sound familiar to many, a Randy Moss-like stat for wide receiver Max Barish, where in that game he had 3 receptions for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was their varsity offensive player of the week. And on the defensive side, Oliver Wendell, 11 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and one of those interceptions coming back for a touchdown, putting his stamp on the high-scoring event. Again, the most in 33 years at Pinckney High School, so definitely still some talent on that team. Although it is worth mentioning that the team that they face, Carleton, has a struggling defense, we'll put it that way. They give up about 57 points per game, so a 62-point win does fall about average for Carleton's defense, but still, regardless of the opponent you play, the confidence that is gained in a game like this, in a season where you came into it 0-7, any win you can get is something that's going to be cherished, something that's going to be celebrated in that locker room, and that brings in a lot of momentum into their game against Ann Arbor Pioneer. So don't disregard it, but still context is necessary for that game there. And a similar kind of context can be applied to the Ann Arbor Pioneer side, where last week they were instead on the wrong side of a 60-plus point loss, this time to near top of the conference, Dexter. 69-19 was the final score against Dexter, who is currently 5-1 in the conference and 7-1 overall, and one of the top teams in the state. So definitely a good team to be played against, but this brings up now one more chance for Pioneer to wash that bad taste out of their mouth and to get momentum coming into their next season. Ann Arbor has been into the playoffs their past 2 years with a 5-5 and 6-4 record. This year, right now, as mentioned, a 3-5 conference, a 2-4 conference record and a 3-5 overall record is where that puts them for the season. Very unlikely that they'll be into the playoffs, so it'll be up to first-year head coach Steve Simpson to get them back into it for next year. And it's these last games of the regular season that many of the students on the team do remember during the offseason, during their practices, during their development into the next season. It's, sometimes you remember something by the way it ended. And for Pioneer at home behind the shadows of the big house, they want to make sure that that is a great memory that can be leading into next year's, hopefully, future success. And for Steve Simpson, first-year head coach here, is very familiar with the program. As a former assistant to the varsity team, also a former head coach of the JV team, this was the only head coaching job that he applied to last off-season because this school is very close to him, having family ties. His wife and his children attend the school or have attended the school, and it puts that in a very special place in his heart, this being the only place that he wanted to coach, according to him. But he's not the only coach in recent years that has been hired. He is part of a coaching carousel, as Ann Arbor Pioneer has been looking for their steady leadership to lead their program to long-term success. Simpson stands as the 4th head coach hired in the past 6 years for Pioneer. So this season being his first foundational year, this could be the last stamp on it to prove that this is something that Ann Arbor is going to want to continue with. To have that kind of consistent leadership and consistent success of the program, a win like this can serve very well into that as they continue to find that success. 2 of the past 3 years, they have been in the playoffs with a 5-5 and then 6-4 record in the past 2 seasons. They want to get back into the playoffs for next season. And they'll have a senior quarterback that can help them get there. Currently, junior quarterback Cole Hayes sits as the top junior athlete in all of the Ann Arbor area, as voted recently, ahead of a second place finish for Pioneer swimmer Surin Lee, as Ann Arbor Pioneer not only has a great football program and other athletic programs, but their girls swim program is very dominant and one of their top programs at the school there. So I want to give a shout out to their swim program. As a former swimmer myself, I always like to give a shout out to those in the pool. So that sets us up here at Ann Arbor Pioneer as they host the Pinckney Pirates to finish off our drive to the game coverage of Michigan high school football this season. It's been a wild ride, and I'll save my big thank yous and everything for the final moments of the post-game show, which you guys can find right here on SportsCaster.com or on WJR, as we have been throughout this whole season. It's going to be great. It's going to be the Pioneers. It's going to be the Pirates in the final game of the regular season in Ann Arbor. My name is Giovanni Moceri, and I will see you there.
Again, Friday night, Pinckney against Ann Arbor Pioneer, final game of the high school football regular season. Look forward to seeing you back here on WJR on Friday for that game. And of course, next week, we will see you back here for open mic on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. I do want to thank all our guests from today. Giovanni Moceri does such a nice job for us with our high school football coverage. Want to thank Elizabeth Albrecht from West Bloomfield High School, the top-ranked swimmer in the state of Michigan, who has big sights on potentially 2 more first-place finishes at the state championship meet coming up next month. Thanks to Lyric Sloan, sportscaster from Michigan State University, who did that interview. And our thanks to the voice of the Spartans on radio, George Blaha. Big game coming up this weekend in East Lansing. It is Michigan State. It is Michigan. Who do you like? It's up to you. All right. We look forward to seeing you again next week here on Open Mic. I'm your host, Johnny Kane. Until next time, Godspeed.